I saw my son's car and decided to surprise him for his birthday by hiding in the back seat with his gift. Then he got in with someone who said, "Your pathetic mother won't be a problem much longer." I couldn't believe when I saw who was sitting next to him. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. My name is Dorothy Sullivan, but everyone calls me Dot. At 63, I thought I'd seen enough betrayal for one lifetime. I was wrong. It was March 15th, Marcus' 35th birthday, and I had his favorite chocolate cake from Henderson's Bakery sitting in my lap. I'd been waiting in his Honda for 20 minutes, grinning like a schoolgirl at my own cleverness. The surprise birthday visit was going to be perfect. Then I heard the footsteps approaching and ducked lower behind the driver's seat, barely containing my excitement. The car door opened, and Marcus slid into the driver's seat. But instead of starting the engine, he waited. Another door opened. "Are you sure about this?" a woman's voice asked, as she settled into the passenger seat. I almost gasped out loud. It was Vanessa Brooks, his business partner. The same Vanessa I'd helped him hire 2 years ago when I lent him $30,000 to expand his marketing firm. "Positive," Marcus replied, his voice cold in a way I'd never heard before. "The old bat signed everything over to me after Dad died. Power of attorney, beneficiary changes, the works." She was so grateful for my help with the paperwork. My blood turned. "Face, what paperwork? What changes? And the house?" Vanessa asked. Marcus chuckled, a sound that made my skin crawl. "Already in my name. She doesn't even know." I told her it was just updating the deed for tax purposes after Dad's death. The cake box trembled in my hands. "My house. The house Frank and I built together 41 years ago. Your pathetic mother won't be a problem much longer," Vanessa said, her voice dripping with contempt. "Once we're married, we'll put her in Sunset Manor. She'll be grateful for the company." Married. My son was engaged, and I had to learn about it by hiding in his car. "The nursing home costs will eat up whatever's left of her savings pretty quickly," Marcus continued matter-of-factly. "But that's not our problem anymore." I pressed my hand to my mouth to keep from screaming. This was my son, my baby boy who used to crawl into bed with me during thunderstorms. The child I'd sacrificed everything for after his father died 3 years ago. "If she figures it out?" Vanessa asked. "Vanessa, she won't. Mom trusts me. Completely. Always has. Makes this almost too easy." The engine started and, as they drove away to celebrate his birthday, I sat in stunned silence in the back seat holding a cake for a son who was planning to throw me away like garbage. But Marcus had made one crucial mistake. He'd underestimated his pathetic old mother. The 20-minute ride to whatever restaurant they'd chosen felt like an eternity. I stayed hidden, my mind racing as I tried to process what I'd just heard. When the car finally stopped, I waited until they'd walked away before slipping out and calling a taxi. Back home, I sat in my kitchen staring at the birthday cake. The same kitchen where I'd taught Marcus to crack eggs without getting shells everywhere. Where I'd helped him with homework every night through high school. Where I'd cried with him when his father passed. How had I missed the signs? How had my devoted son become this stranger? The truth was, I hadn't missed them. I'd just chosen to ignore them. It started right after Frank's funeral. Marcus had been so helpful, so attentive. "Mom, let me handle the paperwork," he'd said. "You're grieving. You shouldn't have to deal with this financial stuff." Been grateful. overwhelmed by loss and drowning in insurance forms, bank documents, and legal papers. He didn't understand. When Marcus offered to help navigate it all, I'd signed whatever he put in front of me. Just a formality. This gives me permission to handle things if you're ever unable to. That's how he'd explained the power of attorney. Document. We need to update the house deed for tax purposes now that Dad's gone. That's how he described transferring my home into his name. I trusted him completely. My brilliant, successful son who ran his own marketing company. Why wouldn't I trust him? The signs had been there, though, the way he'd stopped visiting unless he needed something. How he'd become evasive when I asked about his personal life. A day, I'd mentioned wanting to update my will, and he'd quickly changed the subject. And Vanessa I should have seen through. Her fake sweetness from the beginning. The way she'd charm me when she needed something, then barely acknowledge my existence otherwise. I'd even helped pay for her marketing certification courses. My phone rang, jolting me from my Marcus's name appeared on the screen. "Hi, honey," I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. Sorry I missed your call earlier. Vanessa and I were at dinner celebrating my birthday." The casual lie rolled off his tongue so easily. "Oh, that's nice, dear. How was?" "Great. Listen, I wanted to talk to you about something. Can I come over tomorrow? There are some financial things we need to discuss." My stomach dropped. "What kind of financial things?" "Just some updates to your accounts. Nothing major, but it's important we handle it soon." "I'll bet it is." Thought. "Course, honey. Whatever you think is best." "Perfect. I'll be there around 10 o'clock. And Mom, don't worry about anything, okay? I'm taking care of everything." After he hung up, I sat in the growing darkness of my kitchen. Frank's picture on the mantel, watching over me. My husband had always been the suspicious one, the one who questioned people's motives. I'd been the trusting one, seeing the best in everyone. "Well, Frank," I whispered to his photo, "looks like you were right to worry about people taking advantage of me." But Frank had also taught me something else. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. Marcus had just shown me exactly who he'd become. Now it was time to figure out what I was going to do about it. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Vanessa's voice. "Your pathetic mother won't be a problem much longer." By 6 a.m. I was dressed and ready. As if Marcus thought I was just some helpless old woman, he was about to learn otherwise. I might be 63, but I wasn't dead yet. My first stop was Henderson's Bakery. Irene Henderson had been my friend for 20 years, ever since her daughter was in my 3rd grade. "Bless," she exclaimed when I walked in. "Don't tell me Marcus didn't like his chocolate cake. I made it extra special." "Actually, Irene, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest." I leaned across the counter. "Has Marcus ever been in here with a young woman? Blonde, early 30s, very put together." Irene's expression shifted. "Oh yes. Several times over the past year. They seem quite close." "Close how?" She glanced around the empty bakery, then lowered her voice. "They were holding hands, kissing. Last month they came in looking at wedding cakes." "Wedding cakes?" The confirmation hit me like a physical blow, but I kept my expression neutral. "Did he introduce her as his fiancée?" "I thought it was odd that you hadn't mentioned it, but I figured maybe it was a surprise or something." "A surprise." That was one way to put it. "Irene, I need you to promise me you won't mention this conversation to anyone. Can you do that?" He nodded, concern creasing her features. "Is everything okay?" It will be, I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. My next stop was First National Bank, where I'd done business for 35 years. Linda Peterson, the branch manager, greeted me warmly. "Mrs. Sullivan, how can I help you today?" "Linda, I need to review all my accounts, every single one, and I need to know who has access to them." Her smile faltered slightly. "Is there a problem?" "I hope not, but I need to be sure." What Linda showed me made my blood run cold. Marcus wasn't just on my accounts as a co-signer. According to the paperwork I'd apparently signed, he was the primary account holder. I was listed as a secondary party on my own bank accounts. "When did this change happen?" I asked, staring at documents that bore my signature, but that I didn't remember. Saying, "Me check. It was about 18 months ago. You and Marcus came in together. You seemed a bit confused about the process, so Marcus explained everything." Confused. That's what they'd call it when they eventually put me in the nursing home too. Poor old Dot. So confused about her finances. "Linda, need copies of everything. Every document, every signature card, every change made to these accounts in the past 3 years. Of course, Mrs. Sullivan. Is there something specific you're concerned about?" Thought about my conversation with Marcus, about his casual mention of financial things we needed to discuss, about wedding cakes and nursing homes, and how pathetic mothers eventually stop being problems. Let's just say I'm suddenly very interested in understanding my financial situation. As Linda printed the documents, I realized something that should have scared me but somehow didn't. I was completely at Marcus' mercy. He controlled my money, my house, probably my entire future. But Marcus had made one crucial error. He'd assumed I would stay ignorant forever. Game on, sweetheart. The documents Linda gave me painted a horrifying picture. Over the past 18 months, Marcus had systematically stripped me of control over my own life. My savings account, my checking account, even my CD investments, all transferred to his primary control. But what really made my hands shake was the insurance paperwork. Frank's life insurance policy, the one that was supposed to provide for me for the rest of my life, had been changed. Marcus was now the sole beneficiary. I sat in my car in the bank parking lot, studying page after page of my own signature. Some I remembered signing. Most I didn't, but they all looked legitimate. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Running a few minutes late, Mom. See you at 10:30 instead." Perfect. That gave me extra time to prepare for our little financial discussion. At home, I spread all the documents across my dining room table. The same table where we'd eaten birthday dinners and holiday meals, where Marcus used to do his homework while I graded papers, where Frank and I had planned our retirement. I called my old friend Ruth Miller. If anyone would know how to handle this situation, it was Ruth. She'd been through her own family drama. When her stepson tried to contest her husband's will. "You sound strange. What's wrong?" I told her everything. The overheard conversation, the bank documents, the power of attorney. Didn't remember giving him complete control through. "Oh honey," Ruth breathed when I finished. "This is elder financial abuse. It's more common than people think. And sadly, it's usually family members. What can I do?" "First, you need a lawyer, someone who specializes in elder law. Second, you need to document everything. And third, you need to be very careful. If Marcus realizes you're on to him, he might accelerate his timeline." "Accelerate how?" "The nursing home. Once you're declared incompetent or moved to a care facility, it becomes much harder to challenge these arrangements." After Ruth gave me the name of an attorney, I sat staring at Marcus's senior picture on my mantle. Honor roll student, Eagle Scout, business degree from State University. That Frank and I had sacrificed to pay for. When had my achieving, ambitious son become this calculating stranger? The doorbell rang at exactly 10:30. Quickly gathered the papers and locked them in Frank's old filing cabinet, then went to answer the door. "Hi, Mom." Marcus leaned down to kiss my cheek, and I had to force myself not to flinch. He looked handsome and successful in his navy suit, briefcase in hand, like he was conducting a business meeting, which I supposed he was. "Coffee, honey?" I asked, leading him to the living room. "Sure, thanks." He settled into Frank's old chair and opened his briefcase. "Oh, I wanted to talk to you about some changes we need to make to your financial setup." I sat across from him, hands folded in my lap, the picture of an agreeable elderly mother. "Our accounts are getting a bit complicated to manage. I think it would be simpler if we consolidated everything into one account that I handle completely. That way you don't have to worry about balancing checkbooks or keeping track of multiple statements. Don't have to worry." How considerate of him. "And there's something else," he continued. "Vanessa and I are getting married." I arranged my face into an expression of surprised delight. "Marcus, how wonderful. When?" "Next month. Small ceremony. Just immediate family." Immediate family. Wondered if that included me or if I'd already been written off as too pathetic to matter. "We've been looking at houses," he continued, "and we found the perfect place, but we'll need to free up some capital for the down payment." Here it comes, I thought. I was thinking we could sell this place. It's way too big for you now, and the maintenance costs are getting expensive. There's a lovely senior community across town. Much more appropriate for someone your age. Someone my age. Not a nursing home yet, but getting closer. "I don't know, honey," I said carefully. "This house has so many memories." Marcus's expression tightened, almost imperceptibly. "Mom, you need to be practical. You can't live here forever. What happens when you can't manage the stairs? When you need help with daily activities? Feel fine now. For now. But we need to plan for the future. Trust me, I know what's best." The arrogance in those 4 words took my breath away. I know what's best, not what's best for me. What's best for him? "Well," I said slowly, "I suppose I should think about it." Something flickered across his face. Impatience. Frustration. "There's not much to think about, Mom. The housing market is good right now. If we wait too long, we might miss our opportunity." Or opportunity. As if selling my home was somehow a joint venture we were undertaking together. "Let me consider it for a few days," I said. Marcus' jaw tightened. Few days might be too long. The house Vanessa and I want to buy won't stay on the market forever. And there it was. The real timeline. Not my comfort or my needs, but Marcus and Vanessa's house hunting schedule. "I understand, honey. But this is a big decision." He snapped his briefcase shut. The sound sharp in the quiet room. "Fine, but don't wait too long. Sometimes opportunities don't come around twice." As I walked him to the door, I realized he was right about one thing. Opportunities don't come around twice. And he'd just given me mine. After Marcus left, I sat in Frank's chair and called the attorney Ruth had recommended. Attorney Patricia Webb specialized in elder law and had dealt with dozens of cases like mine. "Mrs. Sullivan, based on what you're telling me, we need to act quickly. You come in this afternoon." 2 hours later, I sat in Patricia's office, watching her review the bank documents. With growing concern. "This is sophisticated," she said finally. Your son didn't just take advantage of your grief. He systematically planned this over a period of months. Is there anything I can do? Possibly. But first, I need to ask you some difficult questions. Do you remember signing these power of attorney documents? Closed my eyes, thinking back to those terrible months after Frank's death. Some of them Marcus said I needed to sign. Papers so he could help manage things while I was grieving, but I don't remember giving him complete control. That's the problem with these situations. Predators often strike when their victims are most vulnerable. We're dealing with tremendous loss, and Marcus exploited that. The word predator made me flinch. We were talking about my What are my options? We can challenge the power of attorney documents, argue that you weren't competent to sign them due to grief and emotional distress. We can also file for elder abuse, both financial and emotional. But Mrs. Sullivan, you need to understand something important. What's that? Once we start this process, your relationship with Marcus will be permanently damaged. Family court cases like this destroy families. Are you prepared for that? I thought about the conversation I'd overheard in the car, about Vanessa calling me pathetic, about Marcus planning to put me in a nursing home, about how I wasn't supposed to be a problem much longer. Patricia, what relationship? He's already decided I don't matter. Then let's make sure you matter very much. Patricia explained the process. We'd need to gather evidence, document his financial manipulations, and prove that I was competent to manage my own affairs. It would take weeks, maybe months. The most important thing right now is that Marcus doesn't realize you're on to him. Can you do that? Can you pretend everything is normal while we build our case? Could I smile and play the role of the trusting, naive mother while secretly documenting my son's betrayal? Mrs. Sullivan, are you all right? I looked up at Patricia, this stranger who was offering to help me fight for my life, and made a decision that would change everything. Yes, I can do that. But I need to ask you something first. Is it legal to record conversations in this state? Patricia smiled for the first time since I'd arrived. Why do you ask? Because Marcus wants to have another financial discussion with me next week, and I think it would be very helpful if we had a record of exactly what he's planning to do to his pathetic old mother. Mrs. Sullivan, I think you're going to do just fine. As I drove home, I passed the nursing home Marcus had mentioned, Sunset Manor. I'd driven by it hundreds of times and never really looked at it. Now I studied the building, the small windows, the residents sitting on the porch in wheelchairs. Is that where Marcus pictured me spending my final years, warehoused with strangers while he and Vanessa lived in my house and spent my money? Not if I had anything to say about it. But first I needed to have a conversation with Vanessa. It was time to meet my future daughter-in-law properly. Finding Vanessa's address was easier than I expected. Marcus' marketing company website listed both partners, complete with professional headshot and contact information. Vanessa Brooks lived in a trendy downtown loft, the kind of place that cost more per month than I used to make. In 6 months of teaching, I parked across the street and waited. Patricia had advised me to document everything, to build a complete picture of Marcus and Vanessa's relationship and financial situation. If they were planning to steal my money, I wanted to know exactly how they were spending it. At 11:30 a.m., Vanessa emerged wearing a designer workout outfit that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. She climbed into a brand new BMW convertible and drove toward the upscale part of town. I followed her to the Prestige Fitness Center, where monthly memberships started at $300. She spent 2 hours there, then met a friend for lunch at Romano's, easily the most expensive restaurant in the city. As I watched her laugh and order wine at noon on a Tuesday, I wondered where the money was coming from. Marcus' marketing firm was successful, but not luxury car and expensive lunch successful. Not unless he had additional income sources like, for instance, access to his mother's life savings. That afternoon I drove by the house Marcus and Vanessa were supposedly looking to buy. The real estate sign was still up, and I copied down the agent's number. A quick call revealed that yes, they were very interested buyers, but there had been some delays with financing. They're waiting on some family money to come through, the agent confided. Should be resolved within the next few weeks. Family money. My money. That evening, Marcus called to check in, his voice warm and concerned. How are you feeling about our conversation yesterday, Mom? I've been thinking about what you said about selling the house. And I took a deep breath and played my part. Right, honey. This place is too big for me. Maybe it is time to downsize. Relief in his voice was unmistakable. I'm so glad you're being reasonable about this. I was worried you might be stubborn. Stubborn, like wanting to keep my own house with some kind of character defect. When would you want to list it? Yes. I'll call a realtor tomorrow. We'll want to price it competitively for a quick sale. Quick sale, of course. Can't have me changing my mind or having time to think things through properly. And Mom, I've been looking into that senior community I mentioned, Sunshine Gardens. They have a lovely one-bedroom available. Could take you to see it this weekend. Sunshine Gardens. I'd looked it up online after our conversation yesterday. It was expensive, isolated, and had terrible reviews. Residents complained about poor food, indifferent staff, and feeling abandoned by their families. That sounds nice, dear. Perfect. And there's one more thing. I'll need you to sign some papers when I come over Friday just to get the house sale process started. More papers to sign, more of my life to sign away. Course, honey. Whatever you think is best. After he hung up, I sat in my kitchen making a list. Every lie Marcus had told, every manipulation, every document I'd signed. Without fully understanding, every dollar he'd moved out of my control. By the time I finished, it covered 3 pages. Frank's photo watched me from the mantel, and I could almost hear his voice. That boy is not the son we raised. He was right. The son we'd raised would never have stolen from his mother. Would never have planned to abandon her in a substandard nursing home. Would never have called her pathetic behind her back. But Marcus had made one critical error in his planning. He'd assumed I would stay the same trusting, grieving widow who'd signed whatever he put in front of her. Friday couldn't come soon enough. I was looking forward to our conversation about those papers. Almost as much as I was looking forward to the conversation he didn't know we were going to have. Friday arrived with unseasonable warmth for March. I'd been awake since 5, checking and double-checking the recording device Patricia had provided. It was smaller than my thumb and completely invisible once tucked into my cardigan pocket. Just press this button to start recording, she'd explained during our Wednesday meeting. The battery lasts 4 hours and the sound quality is excellent. At exactly 10 a.m., Marcus arrived carrying his briefcase and wearing his most charming smile. Morning, Mum. Beautiful day, isn't it? Lovely. I agreed, leading him to the dining room. Coffee, please. He settled into his usual chair and opened his briefcase with practiced efficiency. I brought those papers I mentioned. Pressed the record button as I poured his coffee. What kind of papers? Just some updates to your financial arrangements and the paperwork to list the house. He spread several documents across the table. Sign here, here, and here. I picked up the first document, pretending to read it carefully. It was a power of attorney revision that would give Marcus even more control over my affairs. This seems very comprehensive. Very honey, it needs to be. Mom, I have to be honest with you about something. His voice took on a serious tone. I'm concerned about your memory. You've seemed confused lately about financial matters. Confused. There was that word again. Have I? Yesterday when I called. You didn't remember our conversation about the realtor. And last week you asked me the same question 3 times. I hadn't done any of those things, but I could see where this was heading. Dear, I hadn't noticed. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It happens to people our age. But it's why we need to get these legal protections in place now while you're still competent to sign. While I'm still competent. The implication was clear. Soon I wouldn't be. Marcus, can I ask you something? Course. Are you stealing from me? The question hung in the air like smoke. Marcus' face went through several expressions before settling on wounded incredulity. Mom, how can you ask that after everything I've done for you? I went to the bank yesterday. Linda showed me my accounts. You've moved all my money into accounts where I'm not the primary holder. His jaw tightened. I explained this already. It's for your protection. Protection from what? From yourself. The mask slipped slightly, revealing something harder underneath. Mom, you're not thinking clearly anymore. Last month you nearly got scammed by that phone call about your car warranty. If I hadn't been managing your finances, you could have lost everything. I'd never received any such phone call. But Marcus's lie rolled off his tongue so smoothly. I almost admired the craftsmanship. And what about Vanessa? What about her? Are you two engaged? Another flicker of surprise. We've discussed it. Why? I just think it's interesting that you're getting married, buying a house, and putting me in a nursing home all at the same time. Very convenient timing. Marcus sat down his coffee cup carefully. Mom, no one is putting you anywhere. We're finding you a nice place where you'll be safe and have people to take care of you. Sunset Manor. It's a lovely facility, very well regarded. I'd called Sunset Manor yesterday. They had a waiting list, but Marcus Sullivan had put down a deposit for a semi-private room. Move-in date, April 1st, 2 weeks away. When did you put down the deposit, Marcus? His face went completely still. What deposit? Deposit at Sunset Manor. For April 1st. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. When Marcus finally spoke, his voice was different, colder. How did you find out about that? Does it matter? He leaned forward, and for the first time in my life, I felt afraid of my own son. Mom, you're making this much harder than it needs to be. Making what harder? The transition. You can't live here anymore. You can't manage your own affairs. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be for everyone. Everyone meaning you and Vanessa. Marcus stood up abruptly. Vanessa has nothing to do with this. Really? 'Cause I followed her yesterday. Nice BMW, by the way. Expensive gym membership, too. Where's the money coming from, Marcus? The question hit its mark. Marcus' face flushed red. You followed her, Mom. That's stalking. That's exactly the kind of behavior that proves you need supervised care. I need supervised care. Because I discovered my son is stealing from me. I'm not stealing anything. He slammed his hand on the table, making me jump. This money was always going to be mine eventually. I'm just managing it more efficiently. There it was. The truth finally out in the open. Efficiently, I repeated. Do you have any idea what it costs to take care of an elderly parent? The nursing home fees alone will eat through your savings. In 3 years. This way we preserve the family wealth while ensuring you get the care you need. Family wealth. My life savings had become family wealth that needed preserving. Marcus sat back down, his voice returning to its earlier reasonable tone. Mom, sign the papers. Let me handle everything. You won't have to worry about money or maintenance or any of it anymore. I looked at my son, this stranger wearing Marcus's face, and felt something break inside my chest. Not my heart. That had already broken when I heard him call me pathetic in his car. This was something deeper. The final severing of the cord that had connected us since the day he was born. No, I said quietly. No what? No, I won't sign the papers. No, I won't sell my house. And no, I won't go quietly into that nursing home so you and Vanessa can live off my money. Marcus's mask finally fell away completely. Don't have a choice, Mom. I already have power of attorney. I can declare you incompetent. Can you? And after your behavior today, stalking Vanessa, making these paranoid accusations, I think that's exactly what I'll have to do. I smiled then, probably for the first time since this nightmare began. Marcus, honey, there's something you should know. What's that? I reached into my cardigan pocket and pulled out the recording device, still running. I've been recording our entire conversation. The color drained from his face. Can't do that. Actually, I can. Single-party consent state. Remember you taught me that when you studied business law. Marcus stared at the device like it was a snake. Mom, delete that recording. Right now. I don't think so. If you don't delete it, I'll have you declared incompetent tomorrow. Go ahead, try it. I'll be interested to see how a judge reacts when they hear you admit to stealing my money for efficiency purposes. We stared at each other across the dining room table. 35 years of my motherhood dissolving into this moment of pure antagonism. Finally, Marcus gathered his papers and stood up. This isn't over, Mom. No, I agreed still. Smiling. It's just getting started. After Marcus left, I sat in my kitchen, shaking not from fear this time but from adrenaline. I'd stood up to him. I'd fought back and it felt incredible. Called Patricia immediately. Mrs. Sullivan, how did it go? Got everything. He admitted to stealing my money, to planning to put me in a nursing home, to already having power of attorney he plans to abuse. It's all on tape. Excellent. Can you come in Monday morning? We need to move quickly now that he knows you're aware of his plans. After hanging up, I realized Marcus was right about one thing. This was just getting started. If he was desperate enough to threaten me with incompetency proceedings, he wouldn't hesitate to escalate further. I needed allies and I needed them fast. My first call was to Ruth Miller. Ruth, I need your help with something and it might get complicated. Anything. What do you need? You need witnesses. People who can testify that I'm mentally competent, that I can manage my own affairs. Consider it done. I'll call Margaret Thompson and Bradley too. We've all been friends for 30 years. Anyone who says you're incompetent will have to get through us first. My second call was harder. I dialed my sister Linda in Phoenix, the sister I hadn't spoken to in 2 years because of a silly argument over Dad's china pattern. Is that really you? Hi, Linda. I know it's been a while, but I need to tell you something important. I told her everything. The theft, the Nursing home deposit the recording. By the time I finished, Linda was crying. Oh honey, I'm so sorry. I always thought Marcus was too smooth, too charming. But I never imagined this. Linda, I might need you to come up here. If this goes to court, I'll need family support. I'll book a flight tonight. I'm proud of you for fighting back. Mom and Dad would be proud too. That evening, I was making dinner when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Vanessa standing on my porch looking perfectly composed in her designer coat. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. Vanessa, this is unexpected. Mrs. Sullivan, we need to talk, do we? Marcus told me about your conversation today. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I almost laughed. What kind of misunderstanding? May I come in? Chilly out here. Against my better judgment, I let her into my living room. She sat on my sofa like she owned it, which I supposed she thought she soon would. Mrs. Sullivan, Marcus is worried about you. We both are. How thoughtful. This paranoia, these accusations, they're not like you. Has your doctor mentioned anything about early-stage dementia? The audacity took my breath away. Vanessa, I know exactly what you and Marcus are planning. We're not planning anything except what's best for you. Her voice was honey-sweet, but her eyes were calculating. Marcus loves you so much. It breaks his heart to see you struggling like this. Struggling with what exactly? With reality. Mrs. Sullivan, you followed me yesterday. You think Marcus is stealing from you. You're making recordings of private conversations. These are concerning behaviors. I studied this perfectly put-together young woman who was trying to gaslight me in my own living room. Tell me something, Vanessa. How long have you been planning this? Planning what? The nursing home taking over my life. Her mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold underneath. Mrs. Sullivan, I think you need help. I think you need to leave. She stood up, smoothing her coat. We're trying to be patient with you, but Marcus has responsibilities. To his business, to our future together, to his family's financial security. His family's financial security. Mean my money. I mean the wise management of family assets for everyone's benefit. Everyone meaning you and Marcus. Everyone meaning the people who matter. The words slipped out before she could stop them. The people who matter. I repeated. And I don't matter. Vanessa realized her mistake immediately. That's not what I meant. Yes, it is. That's exactly what you meant. She headed for the door, then turned back. Mrs. Sullivan, Marcus is going to take care of this situation with or without your cooperation. It would be easier for everyone if you just accept help gracefully. Is that a threat? Advice from someone who cares about your well-being. After she left, I double-checked all my locks and called Patricia's emergency number. They're escalating, I told her. Vanessa just tried to convince me I have dementia. And she basically threatened me. We need to accelerate our timeline. Can you be in my office first thing Monday morning? I'll be there. And Mrs. Sullivan, don't let them into your house again. If they're desperate enough to threaten you, there's no telling what they might do next. As I got ready for bed, I realized I wasn't the same person who'd hidden in Marcus' backseat just 5 days ago. That woman had been trusting, naive, eager to please. This woman was done being anyone's victim. But I also realized that Marcus and Vanessa weren't going to give up easily. They'd invested too much time and effort into their plan to let it fall apart now, which meant I needed to be ready for whatever they threw at me next. Monday morning brought unseasonable snow, covering my driveway. in a slick white blanket that made walking treacherous. Perfect weather for feeling like everything was sliding out from under me. I arrived at Patricia's office early, clutching a folder containing copies of every document Marcus had ever asked me to sign. My sister Linda sat in the waiting room, having flown in yesterday despite the weather warnings. "You look different," Linda observed as we waited. "Stronger somehow. I feel different, like I'm finally waking up after a long sleep." Patricia's secretary called us back, and we settled into the attorney's comfortable office overlooking downtown. "I've reviewed the recording," Patricia began, "and it's even better than I hoped." Marcus essentially confessed to financial elder abuse. "But there's something else we need to discuss." Pulled out a thick file. I had my investigator run background checks on both Marcus and Vanessa. "What we found is interesting." "What kind of interesting?" "Marcus's business isn't as successful as he's led you to believe. In fact, he's been operating at a loss for the past 8 months. His partnership with Vanessa has been propped up entirely by the money he's taken from your accounts." Linda leaned forward. "How much money are we talking about over the past 18 months? "Nearly $200,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. $200,000. Frank and I had saved that money over 43 years of marriage. Every vacation we didn't take, every restaurant meal we skipped, every luxury we denied ourselves. There's more," Patricia continued. "Vanessa Brooks has an interesting history. She was married before to an elderly man named Harold Brooks. He died 2 years ago under somewhat mysterious circumstances." "Mysterious how?" "He changed his will 3 weeks before his death, leaving everything to Vanessa instead of his children from his first marriage. His family contested it, claiming elder abuse, but Vanessa settled out of court." Linda and I exchanged glances. "He's done this before," I said. "It appears so. And there's something else you should know. The house they want to buy, it's not some dream home for newlyweds. It's an investment property they plan to flip. They've already lined up contractors." I sat back in my chair trying to process everything. "So they steal my money, put me in a nursing home, flip a house with my savings, and live off the profits. That seems to be plan. But Mrs. Sullivan, we can stop them. The recording gives us grounds for criminal charges. The financial records show clear theft. And with Harold Brooks' suspicious death, we might be dealing with something much more serious." "What do you mean?" "I mean, Vanessa Brooks might be a serial predator who targets vulnerable older adults, and you might not be her first victim." The room fell silent except for the sound of snow hitting the windows. I thought about Vanessa's cold eyes, her casual threats, the way she'd tried to convince me I had dementia. "What's our next step?" "Yes. We file charges immediately. Financial elder abuse. Theft, possibly conspiracy. I'll also petition the court to freeze all your accounts that Marcus has access to." "What about the nursing home?" "We'll get an injunction preventing them from having you committed involuntarily." "Mrs. Sullivan, you need to understand something. Once we file these charges, there's no going back. This will destroy your relationship with Marcus permanently." I looked at Linda, who squeezed my hand supportively. And I thought about the conversation I'd overheard in Marcus's car about being called pathetic, about being seen as nothing more than a problem to be solved. "Patricia, that relationship was already destroyed. I just didn't know it." "Then let's make sure justice is served." As we left the law office, Linda linked her arm through mine. Are you sure you're ready for this? Once those charges are filed, Marcus will. No, you mean business. I'm counting on it. But as we drove home through the thickening snow, I wondered if I really was ready for what came next. Because if Patricia was right about Vanessa being a serial predator, then I wasn't just fighting for my money and my independence. I might be fighting for my life. That evening, as Linda and I sat in my kitchen planning our strategy, the phone rang. Marcus's name appeared on the caller ID. Answer it, Linda whispered. Let's see what he has to say. I picked up the phone, putting it on speaker. Hello, Marcus. His voice was tight, controlled. We need to talk. I think we've said everything we need to say. No, we haven't. I'm coming over. I'd rather you didn't. I'm not asking for permission. Mom, I'm coming over and we're going to settle this like adults. The line went dead. Linda and I looked at each other. Call Patricia, I said. Tell her Marcus is on his way over and he sounds angry. Should we call the police? I thought about it for a moment. Not yet, but if he tries to force his way in, we will. 20 minutes later. Headlights swept across my living room windows. But when I looked outside, I saw 2 cars in my driveway. Marcus and Vanessa had come together, and they didn't look like they were here to apologize. The doorbell rang 3 times, in rapid succession, followed by heavy knocking. I looked through the peephole to see Marcus and Vanessa standing on my porch, both looking grim and determined. Mrs. Sullivan, Marcus called out. Open the door. We know you're in there. Linda moved to the window and peeked through the curtains. There's a third person, sitting in their car. A man I don't recognize. My blood ran cold. Call Patricia now. Linda dialed while I continued watching through the peephole. Marcus was trying the door handle, checking to see if it was locked. His voice was louder now, more aggressive. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. We're trying to help you. Mrs. Webb's office, Linda whispered into the phone. This is an emergency. The knocking became pounding. I know you can hear me, Mom. Open this door right now or I'm calling the police and having you taken in for a psychiatric evaluation. My hands shook as I realized what was happening. They weren't here to apologize or negotiate. They were here to finish what they'd started. Patricia's on her way, Linda whispered, hanging up the phone. And she's bringing the police. Mrs. Sullivan. Vanessa's voice joined Marcus. We're here to help you. You're clearly having some kind of mental health crisis and we're concerned for your safety. Mental health crisis. They were setting up their narrative for when the authorities arrived. The confused elderly woman who barricaded herself in her house, making paranoid accusations against her loving son. Open the door or we're coming in, Marcus shouted. Heard the sound of a key in the lock. My heart stopped. Marcus still had his key to my house. The front door opened and suddenly they were inside my home, uninvited and unwelcome. Mom, Marcus called out, his voice echoing through the house. Where are you? We're here to help. Linda and I pressed ourselves against the kitchen wall, trying to stay hidden. I could hear their footsteps moving through my living room, searching for me. Check upstairs, Vanessa's voice directed. She might be hiding like I was some kind of criminal in my own home. Mrs. Sullivan, a third voice called out, unfamiliar and official sounding. My name is Dr. Martin Hayes. I'm here to evaluate your mental state. A doctor. They'd brought a doctor to declare me incompetent. She's paranoid, Marcus was explaining. Loudly, clearly for our benefit. Making wild accusations about theft, following People recording private conversations. Classic signs of dementia-related paranoia. I see, the doctor replied. She been evaluated recently. She refuses to see her regular physician. Claims everyone is conspiring against her. Linda gripped my arm, her eyes wide with fear. They were building their case in real time, creating a narrative that would justify whatever they planned to do next. Footsteps approached the kitchen. I found them, Marcus called out. I stepped out from behind the wall. Linda beside me. Get out of my house. Marcus held up his hands in a gesture of false calm. Mom, please, we're here to help you. I said, get out. The third man stepped forward. He was middle-aged, professional-looking, carrying a leather bag. Mrs. Sullivan, I'm Dr. Hayes. Her son is concerned about your mental state. My mental state is fine. What's not fine is my son stealing my money and planning to put me in a nursing home against my will. Dr. Hayes exchanged glances with Marcus. Mrs. Sullivan, these are serious accusations. Do you have any proof? I almost laughed. As a matter of fact, I do. I pulled out the recording device and pressed play. Marcus's voice filled the kitchen. This money was always going to be mine. Eventually. I'm just managing it more efficiently. Dr. Hayes's expression changed. Mr. Sullivan, is this your voice on the recording? Marcus's face flushed red. She's been recording private conversations without consent. That's illegal wiretapping. Actually, it's not, I replied. Single party. Consent state, remember. You taught me that. Vanessa stepped forward, her voice honey-sweet. Dr. Hayes, you can see how paranoid she's become, recording family conversations, making these bizarre accusations. The accusations aren't bizarre if they're true, Linda interjected, speaking up for the first time. And I have documents proving everything she said. Dr. Hayes looked around the kitchen, taking in the tension, the fear, the obvious family dysfunction. Perhaps we should all sit down and discuss this calmly. There's nothing to discuss, I said firmly. These people broke into my house. I want them to leave immediately. That's when I heard the sirens outside. Marcus's face went pale. What did you do? I called my attorney and the police. The sound of car doors slamming echoed from my driveway, followed by heavy footsteps on my porch. A loud knock rattled the front. Police, open up, Marcus, Vanessa, and Dr. Hayes exchanged panicked looks. Their carefully planned intervention had just become a crime scene. Mrs. Sullivan, a loud voice called from the front door. This is Officer Rodriguez. We received a call about a break-in. I walked to the front door, Linda right behind me, leaving Marcus, Vanessa, and their fake doctor standing in my kitchen like the criminals they were. When I opened the door, I saw Patricia standing behind two unformed police officers, her expression grimly satisfied. Mrs. Sullivan, Officer Rodriguez said, Are you all right? We received reports of forced entry. I looked back toward the kitchen where Marcus was probably trying to figure out how to spin this situation in his favor. Officer, I said, I'd like to file charges against my son for breaking and entering, financial elder abuse and conspiracy to commit fraud. Mom, Marcus's voice called out desperately from the kitchen. You don't know what you're doing. I smiled for the first time since this nightmare began. Actually, Marcus, for the first time in 3 years, I know exactly what I'm doing. The look on his face when the officers walked into the kitchen made every terrifying moment of the past week worth it. Justice, it seemed, was about to be served. 6 months later, I stood in My garden watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. The same garden Marcus had planned to abandon when he sold my house. The same house where I still lived, still independent, still free. The legal battle had been swift once the evidence mounted. Marcus pleaded guilty to financial elder abuse in exchange for a reduced sentence, 2 years probation, full restitution, and a restraining order that prohibited him from contacting me. Vanessa's case was more complex. Patricia's investigator had uncovered evidence linking her to 3 other elderly victims besides Harold Brooks. She was currently awaiting trial on multiple charges of elder abuse, fraud, and conspiracy. Fake Dr. Hayes turned out to be her cousin, a disgraced former physician who'd lost his license for insurance fraud. I took a sip of my coffee and checked my phone. Linda had sent photos from her new apartment. After everything that happened, she'd decided to move back east to be closer to me. Life's too short to hold grudges, she'd said. When she arrived with a moving truck 3 months ago, my phone rang. Ruth Miller's name appeared on the screen. Morning. Are you ready for our big day? Today was the grand opening of the Dorothy Sullivan Community Garden project I'd funded with part of the restitution money Marcus had been forced to pay back. The irony wasn't lost on me that his theft had inadvertently funded something that would help seniors in our community for years to come. Almost ready. Linda's coming by at 9 to help set up. I still can't believe you named it after yourself. I laughed. Ruth, I spent 70 years putting everyone else's name first. Figured it was time. After hanging up, I walked through my house, straightening things for the celebration. Later, in the dining room, I paused at the family photos on the mantel. Most featured Marcus at various ages. Taken them down after the trial, unable to look at his smiling face without remembering his betrayal. But last week, put up a new photo. It showed me at the community garden groundbreaking, surrounded by friends and neighbors, holding a shovel and grinning like a kid. I looked happy, genuinely happy, maybe for the first time since Frank died. The doorbell rang at exactly 9. Linda stood on my porch carrying a box of decorations and wearing the biggest smile I'd seen in years. Ready to celebrate your victory? She asked, giving me a hug. It doesn't feel like a victory, I replied honestly. Feels like survival. Same thing sometimes. We spent the morning setting up tables and hanging banners at the community garden site. By noon, dozens of neighbors had gathered to celebrate. Mayor Thompson gave a speech about the importance of community spaces. The local newspaper took photos. Children ran between the raised beds, already imagining the vegetables they'd grow. As I watched the celebration, I thought about the woman I'd been 6 months ago. Trusting, passive, eager to please, always putting everyone else's needs first, even when it cost me everything. That woman would have been horrified by what I'd done to Marcus. Would have felt guilty about sending her own son to court, about exposing his crimes, about destroying the fiction that we were a happy, functional family. This woman felt proud. Mrs. Sullivan, a young voice, interrupted my thoughts. I turned to see Emma Patterson, an 8-year-old from the neighborhood holding a small potted plant. I brought you this, she said shyly. My mom said it's for your garden. I knelt down to her level. What kind of plant is it? It's a sunflower. Mom says. They're strong and they always face the light. Always face the light. I felt tears prick my eyes. Thank you, Emma. It's perfect. As the afternoon wound down and neighbors began heading home, I Found myself alone in the garden for a few minutes. I walked between the raised beds, imagining them full of vegetables and flowers, imagining the community that would grow here along with the plants. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. For a moment, my heart raced, wondering if Marcus was violating his restraining order. But the message was from someone else entirely. Mrs. Sullivan. This is Detective Morrison from the county prosecutor's office. Vanessa Brooks accepted a plea deal today. 15 years. No possibility of parole for 12. Thought you'd want to know. Your courage in coming forward helped us save other potential victims. I sat down on one of the garden benches and read the message again. 15 years. Vanessa would be in her 50s when she got out. Too old to prey on vulnerable seniors with the same efficiency. Other potential victims had been saved because I'd found the courage to fight back. Linda appeared beside me, noticing my expression. Good news or bad news? Justice, I replied, showing her the text. How do you feel? I considered the question. How did I feel? Relieved. Certainly vindicated, but also something else. Something I hadn't felt in years. Proud, I said finally. I feel proud of myself. You should. You saved your own life. And probably saved other people's lives too. As we walked back to my house, I thought about the conversation I'd overheard in Marcus' car 6 months ago. About being pathetic, about not being a problem much longer. About being warehoused in a nursing home while my son and his partner spent my money. That version of my future had seemed so inevitable then, so final. But I'd learned something important over the past 6 months. As long as you're breathing, you get to write your own story. And my story was far from over. At 73 years old, I was finally living my own life on my own terms. Edit. Community garden bearing my name, friends who valued me for who I was rather than what I could give them, and a sister who'd moved across the country just to be near me. Most importantly, I had myself. The woman I'd become through surviving the worst betrayal imaginable. The woman who'd faced down criminals and predators and won. The woman who'd learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to be a victim. As I locked my front door that evening, I smiled at the thought of Marcus somewhere trying to rebuild his life, hopefully learning that stealing from your mother has consequences. And I smiled at the thought of Vanessa in prison, unable to hurt anymore. Vulnerable seniors. But mostly I smiled because tomorrow I'd wake up in my own house, in my own bed, living my own life. And that was the greatest victory of all. Thanks for listening. The story continues in the next chapter in the next linked video. But first, I need you to subscribe to join the family as we are looking forward to hit our first 10,000 subscribers target, and feel free to share your story in the comments. You matter, your voice does too.